So after having put it through its paces, here is my review of the Dynasty Dadao made by Condor Tool and Knife. And I can tell you right away, this is an amazingly affordable blade. You can find it for usually around $84 to $100. It also costs $100 at Warriors and Wonders in Canada. And that is very cheap considering that it's made of 1075 high carbon steel. And that is a spring steel which usually has a hardness of about 44 to 50 HRC, although it depends heavily on the individual heat treatment, which unfortunately they don't tell you on the website. It's an excellent choice for a hard use tool. 1075 is very tough and durable, and it would make the edge more likely to roll than chip. And also it would make the blade more likely to bend than break. And that's good because, well, that's the kind of damage that you can fix. If it chips or breaks, well, you lose material, so that cannot be fixed easily. The handle is made of hardwood. On the website they don't tell you exactly what type. It just says hardwood. And I'm not a wood expert. Maybe somebody can look at this and know what it is, but I just don't know. And as you can tell, it is full tang construction. It's sandwiched in between the wooden handle scales. So this is pretty much the most secure attachment you can have for a handle. It's not the most comfortable, but it's extremely sturdy. There's pretty much no chance this would come off. And another thing that makes the blade extremely sturdy is the thick spine. You can see right there, it is 5 millimeters thick, so that is quite hefty. So with normal use it would be extremely unlikely for this to break. You can be really rough with it, and I've chopped plenty of wood with it, put a lot of stress onto it, but no problem whatsoever. This thing is an absolute tank, no doubt about it. It is extremely sturdy. And the cutting performance is really good as well. It comes nicely sharp out of the box. It's not amazingly sharp, but definitely more than sharp enough to do the job. It seems that it has a convex grind. It's almost a bit like a very acute fine axe grind. So it's pretty good at chopping, at splitting even. And yeah, it does a lot of damage. I cut through a very thick soaked newspaper roll. Those can be quite tough to cut through, but no problem. It just sliced right through it. Let me talk briefly about the sheath. It is very well made. It's a solid leather sheath, pretty thick, very sturdy, and it sits pretty well in there. If you have both snap buttons closed, it really does not move whatsoever. It does not have any kind of belt attachment, unfortunately. So wearing it would be, well, you would basically have to tug it through your belt. But yeah, it works. It's quite a well-made sheath. I quite like that. The downside of this beast is that it handles with about the elegance of a sharpened crowbar. It doesn't really feel like a sword at all. The point of balance is about in the center. And if you know anything about swords, you know that that is pretty much a catastrophe in terms of handling if you were to use it in an actual sword fight. Yes, I know, nowadays it's not relevant anymore, of course. We don't have sword fights in the streets anymore or on the battlefield, but it still means that it just doesn't feel all that good in the hand. And if you like swords, you also like what makes them good, namely the balance, the handling. That's not what this has. In terms of agility, yeah, like I said, crowbar. It's, if in a hypothetical situation, if you were to use this against somebody with a sword, you would be at a severe disadvantage. Quite frankly, if both of you were at the same skill level, you would probably be cut to pieces trying to use this. Simply because it just doesn't handle as well. It's pretty heavy. It weighs 1.45 kilos approximately, so a little more than 3 pounds. which is quite similar to this sword here. And you can see there is a lot of extra reach with this. Of course, the blade is also significantly narrower, but yeah, in an actual fight, I take this rather than that. Well, the sharpened version. This is just a blunt training sword. After a swing, if you miss and you have to bring it back up, redirect, you know, that's very difficult with this. So it would be much slower, it would be more exhausting. Yeah, again, this is not meant as a combat weapon against another blade, obviously. This is mainly meant as a tool, you know, for clearing brush and chopping wood, branches, whatever you have to. So it's not exactly a fencing sword, it's not advertised as such. And again, I can definitely see that they did that to keep the price low. It is, like I already said, amazingly cheap. So they simply couldn't put a distal taper on there because that would have required a lot of extra work, grinding it down. That would have increased the price quite significantly. But the thing is, if you're looking at this and you're hoping to get the feel of a historically accurate Dadao, forget about it. It's not very close to that at all. So this is really not for the good handling of a sword. It's more of a less than subtle, for not to say brutal, cleaver. That's really what it is. And the other thing that I have to mention is the handle is not particularly comfortable. And the reason for that is, if you look at the shape, it is rounded rectangular, which is not necessarily a bad thing because it allows you to feel where the edge is very well. But it's not quite rounded enough, in my opinion. I would prefer if it was a little more oval, because it just doesn't feel all that good in the hand. And also, whenever you're chopping hard material like wood, there is a considerable amount of hand shock to this. If you're really chopping hard into something, yeah, you're gonna feel it on your hands. It's not gonna be pleasant. A lot of the shock will be transferred directly to the bones in your hands. Also, one thing that I personally don't like too much about this type of handle in general is that the tang is exposed. So that means that your hands will always be on the tang. So you have to keep cleaning it frequently, otherwise this is going to rust, because remember, it's carbon steel, it's not stainless, so this will most likely rust. And it's not that easy to maintain. So I would have preferred if it was wrapped in string or leather or something. But again, this would have increased the cost. So the criticisms that I mentioned apply to it to a lesser degree. Because if you wanted to improve these things, well, it would become more expensive. So bottom line is, it is one impressive mofo of a cleaver. It is, yeah, it works pretty well for that. It is extremely affordable, it cuts very well. And yeah, if that's what you're looking for, a super sturdy, tough, just weapon of mass cleavage, that turned out wrong, you know what I mean, then yeah, this definitely fits the bill. So thanks for watching.